Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming this morning to this important conversation with His Excellency, Prime Minister of Vietnam, Nguyen Xuan Phuc. Prime Minister is a very experienced governmental leader from Vietnam, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We had the World Economic Forum's summit on ASEAN in Hanoi in the fall, and the Prime Minister was our excellent host. We became real friends during the summit, and it was a summit that had a lot of impact. We had 9 heads of state and governments from ASEAN. Also, one of the vice premiers from China was there. So it really shows not only the importance of ASEAN, but also the importance of Vietnam in a situation where we're seeing increased geopolitical complications. Vietnam, as ASEAN, is maneuvering in a situation where you also have strong economies close to you. China as the second largest economy in the world, Japan as the third largest economy in the world, and also Korea as a very important economic player. So we are very pleased to have you here and honored to have you here in Davos, Mr. Prime Minister. And we are also very honored that we yesterday announced this partnership between Vietnam and the World Economic Forum on the fourth industrial revolution. We know that Prime Minister is personally very committed to moving production in Vietnam up the value chain. And I was very impressed when I was in Vietnam and also met with thousands of business leaders together with you, Prime Minister, where we saw a keen interest in being proactive in all the new technologies related to artificial intelligence, drones, precision medicine, autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things, big data. All of those areas are increasingly important. And let's face it, there is also now a big technology competition going on between the major players. And we think that those nations that are on top of the fourth industrial revolution will be the most prosperous countries and most influential countries going out of this century. So, Mr. Prime Minister, we're very much looking forward to hearing from you this morning and your perspectives on Vietnam, but also on ASEAN and on Asia. So, floor is yours.
Cảm ơn ngài Tổng đốc điều hành.
Thank you very much, President Børge Brende. These are timely matters. As you well know, in 2018, Vietnam has fully and comprehensively achieved social targets, and we have achieved the highest economic growth in 10 years. Macroeconomic stability was maintained, social political stability was ensured, and balances of supply and demand were maintained. We have attracted a large amount of capital in Vietnam of $36 billion, and we have disbursed nearly $20 billion. Domestic businesses have grown greatly as well, with more than 130,000 newly established businesses with jobs created for many people. We have a trade surplus of $7 billion. 2018 has opened up a new direction and provided a new hope for the society. which aspires for greater development and growth. And the UF ASEAN, which was held in Vietnam, was a greatly successful event in terms of diplomatic significance, and it shows our readiness and in the spirit. Vietnam continues to sustain its strong growth. I'm very much optimistic with our economic growth as well as the growth of other countries. Therefore, we will do our best in order to maintain this high growth and sustainable growth. Therefore, reform of institutions, application of Fourth Industrial Revolution, restructuring the economy, and training of human resources and other matters are our concerns in the course of development in order to ensure that the economy in Vietnam will grow even higher and more sustainably and bring about greater substantive benefits to the Vietnamese people. So these are very important goals that we have set out. In midst of uncertainties in international relations, Vietnam remains a friend to all countries, promotes development, and mutual support. And we will continue to reform and renovate, renew the business environment. So in order to attract more businesses, we will also promote the private sector and enable them to become even more developed in 2019, so to maintain economic growth.
Mr. Prime Minister, for that overview of the economic situation and outlook. When I looked into the figures for Vietnam, they are really staggering. During the last 30 years, you annually have had a growth around 6 to 7% for 30 years. And I visited the country several times, and for every time you come, you see big changes. But this has also been export-led growth, as you mentioned, Prime Minister, also with quite a substantial trade surplus. Looking ahead, many people are concerned that emerging economies will be hit by the global economic slowdown. And as IMF also made clear on Monday, they downgraded the expectation for economic growth this year to 3.5%. So how should we expect the implication? What implications do you expect for Vietnam when it comes to slowing global growth? And over medium term, what new engines of growth do you see for Vietnam if you cannot only rely on the traditional export-led growth?
Cảm ơn ngài.
Thank you very much. I believe that in the context of our ever deeper international integration and engagement with many FTAs, the economic slowdown will affect all countries. And this is a long-term risk. Vietnam supports and upholds free trade, multilateral free trading system. And Vietnam sees these trade conflicts and needs to deal with them properly, so to organize our production activities most effectively to prevent our own economic slowdown, to achieve our targets. Therefore, Vietnam will continue to maintain its sustainable development on the four bases. First, we need to reinforce macroeconomic stability, political and social stability in the course of, as we have done over the last 30 years. This will be a strong foundation to reassure domestic and foreign investors. And we need to heighten our resilience to the uncertainties in the world economy. Secondly, Vietnam will continue shifting to an innovation-based growth model and transform into a digital economy. On the basis of restructuring the economy, restructuring the private sector and industries to make use of new technology potentials in fields such as agriculture and tourism and IT. Thirdly, Vietnam is carrying out reforms of legal institutions with the aim of becoming a modern market economy, which operates in accordance with international standards and norms as committed in the new generation FTAs, of which the newest is CPTPP. Fourth, Vietnam continues to deepen our international integration, reinforce our connection to the global and regional economy, and make use of our strength and advantages. We aim to serve the people, to improve their lives, and aim to increase our competitive advantage in context of the fourth industrial revolution. We will proactively meet the fourth industrial revolution and its opportunities, and need to enhance our technology and sciences potential and not rely on traditional factors of production.
If you look at years since 1990, you have also had quite impressive growth in your trade and export, around 16% every year. I think last year it was 14%. So export has also, and trade has been an engine for growth. So trade has grown even faster than the overall growth in your economy. And we know that since 1990, that is also a fact globally. Trade has been an engine to drive unparalleled economic growth. Since 1990, the world economy has doubled the global GDP in 28 years. And we know that trade has always grown faster. If you look now, Prime Minister, at the global trade tensions that are there, are you concerned that potential new trade barriers and trade wars can have negative impact also for Vietnam?
You have spoken of the growth drivers in Vietnam. I totally agree that Vietnam needs to harness its internal strength as a momentum for growth and needs to liberate the 5 pillars of growth to deal with the trade tensions. First, we need to harness inner strength aided by the energy of 95 million people with ever higher income and the growing middle class. The creativity and desire to rise above of more than 93 million dynamic Vietnamese people, 60% of which are under 30 years old. So they provide an important foundation and unlimited resource for Vietnam's development. We have recently harnessed our inner strength most vigorously. Second, we need to promote institutional reforms as a growth driver. The development enabling government will greatly encourage dynamism and creativity of the people and businesses, promote the spirit of entrepreneurship to seize opportunities offered by the fourth industrial revolution. This is a very new matter, and according to Webb, we have not yet been ready for this change. And we need to promote participation of people in the fourth industrial revolution. And this is a drive for us to increase our institutional reforms. Third, the private sector can serve as a growth driver. By 2020, there will be more than 1 million businesses in Vietnam, many of which are startups of larger scales in the private sector, so they can grow in the domestic and foreign markets, particularly in manufacturing, telecommunications, aviation, banking, and finance, agricultural products, iron and steel, and tourism. At the same time, Vietnam needs to effectively attract FDI, promote effective cooperation between FDI donors and the private sector. The private sector needs to grow effectively, and there still remains unexplored potential. Fourth, digital economy and innovation can also drive growth. This is the reason why we welcome new ideas and technologies, promotes development of breakthrough infrastructure, particularly that of broadband internet, 5G mobile data network, big data, and AI, in order to meet with the development needs in the era of fourth industrial revolution. Fifth, extensive international integration is another growth driver. As you know, we have signed 12 FTAs, and we have just recently signed CPTPP, and we are negotiating to conclude the EVFTA with the EU. And RCEP. So these are the ways that we will deal with the challenges of the present global economic situation in order to promote creativity and productivity among young people in Vietnam.
Prime Minister, I also heard when I was in Hanoi and when you spoke that you also underlined, of course, the importance of the quantitative growth economically, but also the quality of growth, more inclusiveness. And when you've seen how fast Vietnam has developed, but also how big proportion of your country that are young people, it's a big asset. But how do you foresee moving forward that after so many years with so much growth, that you can also at the same time increase the quality related to quality of life of the people, but also on environment, but without having a negative impact on the continued growth rate. So this is maybe like squaring the circle, but I know that you have reflections around this, Prime Minister.
With regard to development, we place sustainable development as a requirement. So we rely on 3 pillars: environment, social, and economic growth. We cannot exchange economic growth, sustainability for economic growth. And this is the direction that is expected by our people and by the trends of the times. We need to improve our people's lives, and this is of pressing concern. We need to maintain sustainable growth and macroeconomic stability so that investors can be assured that political and social stability in Vietnam are better maintained than many other countries in the world. And we also have a strong macroeconomic foundation. We always maintain the macroeconomic stability. And this will increase the confidence of investors in Vietnam. With regard with environment, we also look to train our human resources, particularly young people, to meet with the new requirements of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It is for this reason that lifelong learning, reforms of the educational system in order for people to have better lives and their social security ensured.
Thank you. You already touched on it, but
Ngài cũng đã nói về này nhân cuộc
already a reality. We see this in many ways. And I wonder, how do you prepare for the Fourth Industrial Revolution more concretely? We also know that one of the strengths of Vietnam when it comes to manufacturing has been that you have had very competitive salaries. But now when we know that new technology, robotics, and etc., can also replace traditional workers and the way to produce, one has to then move very fast to really be on top of this Fourth Industrial Revolution. So, and you have seen also how fast China has moved on this. Do you see most challenges for the Fourth Industrial Revolution when it comes to Vietnam, or do you see it more as a big opportunity to leapfrog?
I think that every revolution has its own challenges, and the revolution that we are talking of, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, bears with it a lot of challenges in terms of labor employment. But we have seen that labor and employment are always a huge concern, as we have a lack of highly skilled labor. In order to deal with the lack as well as surplus of laborers, we need to look into the training of human resources, especially to disadvantaged people such as women, the elderly people, so they can gain new jobs in the era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I believe that in our experience, the Fourth Industrial Revolution has increased productivity, and I believe that this challenge should be dealt properly by each and every government. We should not worry too much about the labor employment that we are afraid to meet up with the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Where you also have started reforms to prepare for the Fourth Industrial Revolution is when it comes to the state-owned enterprises. If I remember rightly, 35% of the companies in Vietnam, or production turnover, is with the state-owned enterprises. And there are indications, and this is according to your own numbers, that some of these companies are less efficient than other companies. How do you see these reforms moving forward, and how important do you think these reforms now is when the competition will be tougher due to the Fourth Industrial Revolution?
The party and the state of Vietnam have a strategy of institutional reforms in all areas and sensitive areas such as banking and finance, telecommunications, insurance. we have carried out vigorous equitization of enterprises and divested capital at these businesses so that the private sector can take part more in these areas, as well as foreign investment can participate as well, so that the state capital will be reduced, and so we can attract more capital, including foreign capital, into the state-owned enterprises. This is Vietnam's direction, and we have carried out most vehemently. This is not only to call upon capital from all corners of society, but also this is an attempt to monitor, to reduce corruption. And we have had an active program to reduce loss of resources, wasteful resources. Many of our large banks have had the participation of large foreign shareholders. I think that this is a strategy that is very good for the Vietnamese economy in this time.
Prime Minister, we're coming very close to an end here, but let me ask you one last question. How will Vietnam surprise the world in the next 5 years?
We have the spirit and the aspirations for development. But above all, we need to maintain our growth momentum, improve our people's lives, and hope to prove a reliable destination for foreign and domestic investment, and to create the most favorable conditions for their business. We will have put in place program reforms in institutions as well as in the business environment, so that all investors can successfully do business in Vietnam. And we see the success of investors as the success of the government. Therefore, we hope to increase dialogue and carry out reforms of legal frameworks, protect the legitimate interests of investors, and create more jobs for the Vietnamese people. And so that all we can maintain a constant high growth in these times. And I think that if we can maintain such a high rate of growth amidst such uncertainties in the world, this is quite an effort, and not to say a miraculous surprise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.